Chelsea Gray and Breanna Stewart were left off a mock lineup that featured Caitlin Clark as point guard, and the response was immediate and explosive. Fans of veteran players viewed the change as an affront to experience, sparking a torrent of social media outrage, not just against the lineup, but against Clark herself. Her inclusion symbolized something deeper, a shift in the sport's direction that some aren't ready to accept. Instead of celebrating the growth Clark brings to the game, many critics framed her rise as a threat to the status quo.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
But this isn't about disrespecting legends. It's about recognizing momentum. Clark's ability to bring in younger fans, generate ratings, and put women's basketball on a global stage is undeniable. The resistance she faces doesn't stem from her talent, but from the fear of what her influence represents. A sport being reshaped by new energy, new audiences, and new expectations. Supporting Clark means supporting that evolution, even when it's uncomfortable for those holding on to the old order. It all started with a speculative post, a hypothetical team, USA, starting 5 featuring Caitlin Clark as the point guard. Not official, not confirmed, just an opinion. But the backlash that followed? Immediate, intense, and way bigger than the post itself. It exposed a deep fracture in the women's basketball community that's been quietly building for years. A war between generations. A clash between experience and rising stardom. And right at the center of it, Caitlin. The second her name appeared in that mock lineup, everything exploded. Paige Bueckers fans, Chelsea Gray supporters, and a whole wave of veteran loyalists unleashed their frustration online. They saw Clark's hypothetical starting role as disrespectful to players who've paid their dues. It wasn't just criticism, it was outrage. Personal, emotional, and, in some cases, openly hostile. It didn't matter that the post wasn't real. The reaction revealed something much deeper. There's a new order forming in women's basketball, and not everyone's ready for it. Then came the rumor that took things from messy to full-blown crisis. Reports claimed Caitlin Clark would reject a Team USA roster spot if Paige Bueckers was included. No official statement, no confirmation. Just a storm of speculation that, true or not, went viral instantly. The fact that so many people believed it tells you everything. It speaks to just how fractured this moment is and how little trust there is in the leadership managing it. This isn't just about 2 players. This is about everything the sport is going through right now. A generational shift, a power struggle, and a complete identity redefinition. Caitlin Clark, like it or not, represents the future. Her name alone moves merchandise, draws ratings, and floods comment sections. She's more than a player now. She's a brand, a disruptor, and a lightning rod for the kind of attention women's basketball has never seen before. And that's exactly why she's under fire. For some, her success feels like it came too fast. She hasn't earned it, they say. She doesn't have the experience. But those same critics are fine with younger, less popular players being included, so long as they don't challenge the existing hierarchy. That's the issue. Clark isn't just challenging the hierarchy, she's shattering it. And that scares people. Paige Bueckers has her own massive following, and for good reason. She's a skilled, proven player. But the idea that her inclusion should be automatic, while Clark's is somehow controversial, shows just how much this conversation is about control, not merit. This all goes deeper than roster debates. The leadership of Team USA has been accused, more than once, of making decisions based on public perception instead of performance. Allegedly avoiding Clark during Olympic selections to sidestep fan backlash. Prioritizing image over impact. And now, with this latest eruption, those same questions are back. What's driving these choices? Actual talent, or the fear of making someone upset? You have players being left off despite top-tier stats. Others being considered while still recovering from major injuries. Veterans ignored. Newcomers elevated. It's chaos. And while some chaos can come from progress, this feels different. This feels like a leadership structure unsure of how to handle a sport that's finally starting to catch fire. And that's what makes Clark's rumored stance so powerful. Because if she really is willing to walk away from the team over how this is being handled, over who gets selected and why, that's not selfish. That's a message. A message to leadership, to fans, and to the entire system that she refuses to be reduced to a pawn. She's been used as the face of the sport, the hook to bring in new fans, the headline in every broadcast. But when it comes time to give her a legitimate role on the biggest stage, suddenly it's not the right time. How the people running women's basketball have spent the last year cashing in on her popularity. Yet when it's time to build a team that reflects the actual momentum of the sport, they hesitate. Why? Because Clark isn't a quiet player. Because she challenges the narrative. Because she doesn't wait her turn. She creates her own. And now she's being treated like a problem. That fake lineup post didn't just get people talking. It revealed a hard truth. Women's basketball is being torn in two. One side is clinging to tradition, loyalty, and the slow, familiar process. The other wants energy, marketability, and growth now. Clark isn't just part of that second group. She's leading it. Younger fans see it. They're not tied to legacy. They want fast-paced play, huge personalities, big moments. They want stars who can ball out and go viral. And Clark delivers. Every single time. The old guard, meanwhile, sees this as a threat. A potential erasure of everything that came before. That fear is valid. But stalling progress won't protect the past. It'll just alienate the future. This sport can have both. Experience and youth. Loyalty and innovation. But only if leadership stops being scared of backlash and starts making bold, clear decisions. Right now, it feels like the people at the top are more concerned with who's trending than who's winning. That's not leadership. That's crisis management. And fans are over it. They want transparency. They want integrity. They want the best players on the court, not the ones least likely to stir the pot. If Clark is ready to call that out, good. Someone needs to. Because no one should have to apologize for changing the game. And Caitlin Clark has done that. Faster and louder than anyone expected. The fact that we're even here, debating a player who has transformed the sport, is ridiculous. Her place on the roster should be obvious. Her impact isn't theoretical, it's measurable. But instead of celebrating that, leadership is folding under the weight of what if people get mad. They already are. And they're mad because the sport finally got the momentum it's always deserved, and the people in charge still don't know what to do with it. Support Caitlin Clark. Support athletes who raise the standard and don't settle for politics. Drop a comment if you're tired of leadership treating talent like it's a PR liability. Like if you want merit, not nostalgia, to build the next great team. Share this with someone still questioning if Clark belongs. And subscribe, because this fight isn't about one player. It's about where the game goes next. The longer this plays out, the more obvious it becomes. This isn't a Caitlin Clark problem. It's a leadership reckoning. The people at the top of USA basketball are being exposed in real time. By fans, by players, and by the very narrative they failed to control. Because they wanted the numbers. They wanted the headlines. They wanted the energy Clark brings when it benefits their image. But when it's time to hand her real responsibility, when it's time to let her lead, suddenly she's too controversial, too young, too polarizing. And now, with Paige Bueckers being floated as her direct competition in a post that wasn't even official, they're letting fan wars dictate actual team. It's pathetic. This is the same Clark who's driven record-breaking college viewership. The same Clark whose name trends nationally for regular season games. The same Clark that has everyone watching women's basketball differently. She doesn't just show up to play. She elevates the entire event. And yet, she's being forced to play politics, not basketball. Let's be clear. This rumor that she would refuse a Team USA roster spot if Paige Bueckers is included, that only gained traction because it fits the climate. The culture is so broken that people don't blink when they hear that kind of ultimatum. They nod. Because deep down, they understand that Clark has every reason to question how she's being. Paige has dealt with her own adversity. Multiple injuries. A comeback that's been emotionally resonant and physically demanding. Her talent is undeniable. This isn't a Paige versus Caitlin issue. It's about the system throwing them in a conflict while refusing to step up and own the decisions that are shaping their careers. The truth is, both players deserve respect. But Clark's rise isn't a threat to Paige. It's a threat to the leadership that keeps pretending this is about basketball when every decision they make screams fear. They're afraid of upsetting veteran supporters, afraid of making the wrong marketing move, afraid of the internet. And that fear, it's suffocating progress. Meanwhile, they're pushing injured players like Gugu Watkins into roster projections and leaving out proven athletes like Aya Wilson and Breanna Stewart entirely from the conversation. The inconsistency is glaring. If the selection process is based on health, then why are injured players still being floated? If it's about chemistry, why aren't the most reliable leaders being? It's all politics. Quiet, backstage politics. The kind that assumes fans won't notice the contradictions, won't question the agenda, and won't challenge the status quo. But this isn't the old women's basketball world anymore. Fans are noticing. They're dissecting lineups, calling out hypocrisy, and holding leadership accountable in real time. That's the environment Clark is navigating. One where every move she makes is twisted to fit someone else's narrative. If she shows confidence, she's accused of entitlement. If she pushes back, she's labeled a diva. If she dares to expect the same treatment as her male counterparts, she's seen as arrogant, all while being the most valuable name in the sport right now. She's supposed to smile, play along, stay quiet, and be grateful for any opportunity, no matter how insulting or politically calculated it is. And when she doesn't, she becomes the villain in a drama she didn't write. Let's stop pretending this is about team chemistry or Olympic experience. Let's stop acting like fan-created lineups are harmless fun when they consistently trigger leadership indecision and community infighting. And let's stop blaming Caitlin Clark for the consequences of a system too fragile to evolve. The real problem is that the sport's governing bodies can't seem to decide what they want. Do they want to grow the game or protect the legacy of those who already had their moment? Because trying to do both without vision is what's causing this mess. Clark's popularity isn't an accident. It's not luck. It's not hype. It's the direct result of performance and presence on the court and in the culture. And if leadership can't figure out how to honor that without alienating others, that's their failure, not hers. They talk about wanting to globalize the game, about boosting Olympic viewership, about bringing more eyes to women's basketball. But then they pull back when the most marketable player in the sport actually forces that change. That's the contradiction. That's the hypocrisy. And it's not just hurting Clark. It's hurting the entire... Because when fans see the best player getting minimized, they start to disengage. When they sense favoritism, secrecy, or political maneuvering behind the scenes, they stop trusting the product. And when leadership fails to back the athletes driving progress, the game stagnates. Clark refusing to accept a roster spot under certain conditions. If that's even true, wouldn't be petty. It would be self-respect. It would be a boundary. It would be a reminder that even as an athlete, she's allowed to demand clarity, fairness, and accountability from the system profiting off her name. And she's not alone. This new generation of athletes and fans isn't here for the soft-spoken, fall-in-line approach. They're here for honesty, for performance, for visibility, and for change. They're here because Clark made them care. And now they're watching to see if the sport cares back. So if USA Basketball keeps making choices based on fear of fans, of backlash, of shifting power, they'll lose the momentum they're so desperate to maintain. Because no matter who ends up on the roster, one thing is certain. Caitlin Clark's presence will always mean more than a jersey. It means change. It means evolution. It means the old way of doing things is done. And let's be real, Caitlin Clark didn't start this firestorm, but she's the one getting burned for it. This whole situation has shown just how fragile the old system is. All it took was a fake starting lineup with Clark in the PG spot, and suddenly the entire fan base went nuclear. And the people running women's basketball? Silent, frozen, watching a digital battlefield unfold and refusing to step in. Meanwhile, Clark's name is being thrown around like it's a PR liability instead of what it actually is, the biggest asset the sport is right now. She didn't demand to be the face of Team USA. She didn't start the rumor. She didn't ask to be part of a speculative graphic that placed her above fan favorites like Paige Bueckers or Chelsea Gray. But once her face was there, everything changed. The post sparked raw emotion. Fans who felt betrayed, fans who felt empowered, and fans who suddenly had to pick sides. And that's when the rumor dropped. Caitlin Clark allegedly refusing to suit up for Team USA if Paige Bueckers made the roster. Whether or not the rumor holds any truth doesn't even matter anymore. It's taken on a life of its own, because it feels like something that could be true in this moment. That's how much tension there is. That's how deeply divided this community has become. But that's not on Clark. That's on leadership. Because when fans are left to speculate, when there's no transparency, no clarity, and no leadership willing to make firm decisions, the chaos fills the vacuum. And now, the chaos is all-consuming. You've got Clark, who's become a lightning rod for every conversation about growth, marketing, merit, and what the future of this sport should look like. And you've got Bueckers, a player who's fought through injury after injury and still holds a massive amount of goodwill in the community. Neither of them should have to carry the weight of this broken system. But they are. Let's call it what it is, a failure of leadership. When your most popular player becomes a point of division instead of a unifier, that's a sign the people running the show have lost control of the narrative. And when the solution is to avoid the issue altogether, to sideline, downplay, or quietly exclude that player just to keep the peace, that's not strategy, that's cowardice. You don't grow a sport by hiding your stars. You don't manage a team by trying to make everyone happy. You lead by making the right decisions, even if they're unpopular. Especially when they're unpopular. And here's the thing, they can't have it both ways. They can't market Clark when it suits them and then treat her like a problem when it's time to build a real team. They can't use her to boost ratings, sell tickets, and generate headlines, then toss her aside the moment her presence threatens the existing structure. That's exploitation. That's disrespect. And fans are watching it unfold in real time. It's not just about Clark's skill set. Although, let's be clear, her talent speaks for itself. It's about what she represents. A generational shift. A new era. A bold, confident, marketable athlete who brings as much energy to the media cycle as she does to the floor. And that kind of presence forces uncomfortable change. Because for years, women's basketball has been begging for attention, for investment, for respect. And now that it's getting all three, the people in power are scrambling to decide who gets to lead the movement. Clark didn't ask. She just showed up and became that leader by default. And that's what makes people nervous. She didn't wait her turn. She didn't climb the ladder quietly. She blew the whole ladder up. And now, there's panic at the top. The leadership fears backlash from veteran fans. They fear being seen as disloyal. They fear making the wrong move in an already fractured conversation. So instead of confronting the issue head-on, they're letting the players take the heat. They're letting Clark carry the weight of this moment again. And the irony? Clark wants to grow the game. She's not asking for special treatment. She's asking for fairness, consistency, and respect. If she's questioning whether she should join a system that has continuously disrespected her behind the scenes, that's not pettiness. That's wisdom. She knows her worth. And more importantly, so do the... That's why the idea of her walking away from a roster spot, while shocking, isn't being dismissed. It's being debated, dissected, and in many corners supported. Because people are tired of watching women athletes, especially those with real influence, get punished for having standards. Caitlin Clark has every reason to demand more from the people who claim to be guiding the future of the sport. Because right now, that guidance looks more like damage control than leadership. She's not the only one seeing through it. Fans are noticing the inconsistency, the injury exceptions, the vague justifications, the marketing-first approach. When a player like Gugu Watkins is included in early conversations despite being sidelined with a serious injury, but Clark is called a risk because of hypothetical drama, that's not a coincidence. That's strategy, and not the good kind. And the omission of veterans like Aya Wilson and Breanna Stewart from those same hypothetical lineups, that just adds fuel to the fire. It proves that even the most accomplished players aren't safe from the shifting standards and silent decisions being made behind closed doors. That's not building a team. That's building confusion. And guess who ends up carrying the fallout? Clark. Again. So when she says no, or even considers saying no, it's not sabotage. It's a mirror being held up to the sport's leadership. It's a warning that you can't continue to treat star players like marketing tools and expect them to play along when the stakes are highest. Because this isn't about one Olympic cycle. It's about the long-term future of women's basketball, about who gets to shape it, about what values will define it. Will it be loyalty to legacy or courage to embrace change? Clark has already made her choice. And whatever decision she ends up making about Team USA, one thing is guaranteed. She's already impacted the game in ways the old system can't control and clearly doesn't know how to manage. And here's the final truth they can't run from. Caitlin Clark isn't going anywhere. She doesn't need validation from Team USA to prove her worth. The numbers, the fans, the cultural relevance, she's already earned it. But this situation, this mess created by speculative lineups, leadership silence, and fan-base division, it's not just about one roster. It's about whether women's basketball is finally ready to move forward, or if it's going to let insecurity keep holding it back. Clark refusing to be a pawn in a political game isn't arrogance. It's leadership. She's doing what the decision-makers won't, demanding clarity, demanding accountability, and refusing to be complicit in a system that plays favorites while pretending it's all about merit. And people can be mad about it. They can try to twist it. But the truth always comes through. She's not just the face of a moment. She's the force behind a movement. Support Caitlin Clark. Support progress. Support athletes who know their value and aren't afraid to say so. Comment if you're ready for real change. Like if you're done with the old guard calling the shots from behind the curtain. Share this with someone who needs to understand why this isn't just drama. It's a turning point. And subscribe, because as long as the people in charge keep playing scared, this conversation, it's far from over.